Monster Hunter can be quite complicated and overwhelming, especially for a newcomer to the series. As a beginner that has no idea what Monster Hunter even is other than, well, hunting monsters, you may get confused and have all kinds of questions. There's a ton of menus and pop-ups, all the weapons work differently and have different gauges, there's the sharpness meter and the crafting system, and what the hell even is a Dragonator? We've seen a huge spike in the player base following the announcement of Monster Hunter Wilds, along with many other factors which I've also listed in my previous video. And with all the new players getting into Monster Hunter World for the first time, I thought it would be a good idea to give some guidance and maybe help alleviate all the pains and confusion that may come from a new player experience. But I'm going to be doing that a little bit differently than usual. You see, Asmongold, one of the top streamers and content creators, has watched some Monster Hunter videos, including mine, which he also reacted to. And if you're watching Asmongold, hey, I'm happy you and chat enjoyed the video. But anyways, he went even on to play Monster Hunter World himself, and seems to be having a fun time with the game, despite what may seem at times. Now I do want to say that, from what I've seen, I think Asmon has been doing great in Monster Hunter World. It can be a very overwhelming title and things can get even messier when you have 40,000 people watching you live and maybe even giving some bad advice or wrong information.
Like, I asked, can you cut this guy's tail off? Half of the people are saying yes, the other half are saying no. How do you, like, what? Like half of people have to be wrong, right? I mean, like, what is this?
But thankfully, Asmon has been taking his time to explore the map, to better understand the monsters, his weapon, and the way the combat works. And he's even hunted a Rathian during the Wildspire Waste Escort quest, which is something that I think a lot of new players would find difficult, as by that point in the game, you don't really have any good gear and you can simply finish the assignment by ignoring the Rathian completely. But of course, Monster Hunter being Monster Hunter, you can certainly challenge her and that's what he did. So good on him for doing quite well for himself on his first go at Monster Hunter. He certainly did a lot better than me. I triple carted to a Bullfango on Freedom 1 on the PSP. But with all of that said, I'll be going through and analyzing some of Asmongold's gameplay. Not trying to coach him or point out what he's been doing wrong necessarily, but more so trying to explain some things that could improve the overall player experience for any newer players that are just starting out. And I'll be doing that from the perspective of someone that has put over 2,000 hours into Monster Hunter World and has even dabbled in speedrunning. So yeah, for once I'll be the one doing the reacting. Without any further ado, my name is Dark Hero and let's get started. Now I'm not gonna talk much about his weapon selection since it's all up to personal preference. Yeah, some weapons are easier than others and some are stronger than others. But I think picking the ones you like the most is what's most important since that's going to keep you playing the game. That being said, it was a pretty safe guess that he would pick the Greatsword as his weapon, given that it's the big beefy weapon with the big damage numbers. Though I think there was a chance of him picking the hammer or maybe even going with the gun lance because of a class of the same name in Lost Ark. Now the Greatsword is obviously a very slow and heavy weapon. It's all about charging and connecting those big hits, and despite being quite simple, it ends up being one of the harder weapons to use, especially as a new player, because it requires all of that commitment for the charged attacks. You're essentially left wide open and even when you do fully charge it, your positioning is key to ensure that you do land properly that hit. And so we do see Asmon missing quite a bit here, although throughout the stream we can see him starting to understand how each of the Greatsword charge levels work and how to get into the true charge slash. This is one of those things where I would recommend you spending some time in the training area, just to get a basic understanding of the weapon controls, what each button does, what are the follow-ups, how long do you need to charge your attacks. Now something that we see throughout his gameplay is that he never really uses the tackle. Like right there, it was a perfect moment to use your circle button. I'm not quite sure what it is on the keyboard and mouse. But with the Greatsword, whenever you are charging up an attack, you can use the circle button to do a tackle. And whenever you do that, you get super armor, so you can tank through any attacks, You are still going to take damage, so you can actually die from doing that, but it's just so that you are not interrupted, and then you can follow that up into the true charge slash, where most of the greatsword's damage truly lies. And just like that, that is a perfect example of a simple tackle would have solved the issue. So another very important thing to the greatsword's overall damage output is the timing of when you release the charge button whenever you're going for these big attacks. You're not really supposed to hold the button all the way through, you're supposed to release it just after you see that flashing red on your character. So Asmongold could have dealt even more damage in that scenario. Again, the greatsword is a very simple weapon, but it's all about optimizing those small things to get the most damage output out of everything. Now, one thing I want to say is that I'm happy to see him not use the defender gear. I saw that his chat was telling him not to get the defender armor and the defender weapons. In case you don't know and you're new to Monster Hunter, Capcom added the defender armor set along with the defender weapons to basically allow players that want to catch up to their friends that are already in the Iceborne expansion as fast as possible. So that armor set and these weapons are exponentially stronger compared to the rest of the weapons and armor that you can get throughout the entirety of the early game experience. The downside is that by having such a much more powerful weapon that allows you to kill the monsters in just very few hits, and also having an armor set that allows you to withstand pretty much anything they throw at you, is that once you're done with that low rank experience and you start getting into high rank, you haven't really learned the game and how to properly play it, how your weapon actually works. So again, I recommend that nobody uses it, and I'm glad to see that Asmongold is not using it. So I'm not seeing him having any issues against the Puke Puke at all. He's doing pretty well so far. Now, one thing that I see him do right there is that he ended up sheathing the weapon very quickly right after landing the true charge slash. So what you should do to be as effective as possible is instead, right after you land the true charge slash, you try to cancel the end animation as fast as possible by rolling to the side, and then you start immediately charging up your next attack, or you start with a tackle so that you can get into that level 3 TCS. What he ends up doing instead is sheathing the weapon, and so he barely manages to land that TCS, but if that were a different monster in a higher rank, that would definitely not have worked. And just like that, he's done. Now this is that escort mission that you get at the very beginning of the Wildspire Waste, where you come across a Rathian, and there she is, she just roared. The NPCs I think even tell you to run away from her, but you can actually go and try to hunt her, and that's what Asmongold ends up doing, so I really want to see how it does it. Now I just want to point out real quick that in case you don't know, whenever a monster roars, you actually are able to roll through it so that you don't get stunned, even if you don't have the skill earplugs, which makes it so that you are not affected by monsters' roars. Now the timing is very tight, it's not something that most players can do consistently.
Oh my god, he went the wrong way!
So it's totally fine if you do end up missing it. But going back to what I was saying, the game doesn't expect you to beat Rathian at this point. You can even see that the chat is saluting Asmongold, just simply saying that pretty much he will die here. So I think it's actually a really good idea to try to improve yourself as a hunter and see how far you can get in on this hunt and eventually take down the Rathian. So the Rathian's moveset is pretty simple. It's all about doing tail swipes, either whenever she is on the ground, she does horizontal tail swipes, or whenever she is in the air, she does vertical air swipes, just like she did right there.
Yeah. Can I cut his tail off? Is this a tail situation?
So yes, with the Rathian and a lot of monsters starting in high rank, you'll be able to cut their tails. And in the case of the Rathian, it's actually a very good idea to cut off the tail, because since that is such a big part of her moveset, you will essentially be limiting her moveset and her hitbox and make things a lot easier for you. Not to mention that by cutting off a tail, or just breaking monster parts, you get extra rewards at the end of the quest, so it's also a fantastic idea to get as many part breaks as possible. Now right here he's doing the exact perfect thing, he's staying under the Rathian to avoid the tail swipes, while also being able to do damage at the same time. Sadly, he gets hit by the Rathian Classic, the move where instead of doing anything special, she just runs at you. Now right here, I see that on mouse and keyboard you press F, on PlayStation you would press circle and you would just pop this plant, and even though Rathian herself does apply poison, and she is a poisonous monster, these monsters can still be poisoned, and she actually got poisoned there whenever he hit her, so that's perfect. And he got a Rathian Spike, which is fantastic. It's a rare material that you can only get by carving a tail. Now something that Asmon could have done right there is, yes, Rathian is in the air, so it might be difficult to reach her in this spot, but you see that there is a little bit of a slope there. You can see right here there is this slope. So what you can do in this situation is you start to sprint on the slope and the character will initiate a slide animation. When you are doing that, you can press triangle or left click on the mouse and the character will jump, at which point you can follow that up with an attack, and attacks made in the air or after jumping off a ledge like that can make it so that you mount the monster. And of course, mounting monsters is a very important tool to defeating them, because it's essentially free damage. The monster is going to get knocked off for a little bit, and so you have a good window of opportunity to dish out damage, or heal yourself, or even sharpen your weapon. So right there, Asmon said something very important. He decided to give up on charging his first level of the greatsword, which is what you should do, because again, the big part of the damage of the greatsword is all about the level 3 TCS. So you want to get there as fast as possible. So by either spamming the attacks that get you into the TCS, or by using the shoulder tackle, you'll be able to get there a lot quicker, and you'll be ready to use those a lot more often. Oh, that was a beautiful flinch. And that's where he should have used the shoulder tackle. Again, I'm not sure if he knows this by now, but as I stated earlier, you can shoulder tackle through any sort of attacks, and it even includes the projectiles, so he could have just powered through that and went into the level 3 TCS, and that would have been a ton of damage. Ooh, so right there, he ends up getting a beautiful flinch. Let's see that again. But he unfortunately rolls forward and then sheaves the weapon. Those are two mistakes in my opinion. What you should have done in that position is shoulder tackle to close the gap between you and Rathian, or to simply keep on using your left clicks to go into the TCS, because the forward momentum would allow you to reach the Rathian and land that level 3 TCS, which would have dealt a ton of damage. But he's doing really well so far. He's not taking a lot of damage, and he's doing something amazing that I see a lot of players often forget about, which is whenever a monster leaves, you always take that opportunity to sharpen. It's very important to keep your sharpness at the highest level possible. I believe Asmon was confused about this and asking chat about it, and some of them weren't giving him the right answer. The way that sharpness works in Monster Hunter, you have different levels ranging from red all the way to purple, and it is essentially a damage multiplier on your weapon, with anything below green being a negative damage multiplier and anything above green being a positive damage multiplier. It depends on a weapon per weapon basis, and of course only the melee weapons have sharpness, the ranged ones do not have it, but it's something that is very important to maintain, because not only do you get to deal more damage, but also some monsters' parts, you can only hit them without bouncing off of that part if you have a certain amount of sharpness. Again, he's doing great on the Rathian. Oof, I don't know why he sheathed there, it seems to be a bit of an accident. But he's been positioning himself quite well below the Rathian, trying to avoid most of her attacks. So yeah, I think he's been doing great, especially for a new player. Of course he has experience with Souls titles and whatnot, so I wasn't expecting him to be terrible or anything. Now again, I do want to point out, I don't think he has gotten a single mount yet on this hunt. So you see right here that he actually has a couple of ledges. It's this exact spot where he jumps off, and he ends up missing the attack. But it's a bit unfortunate that he misses, but that's okay, because right here he's standing on a perfect position where if he just goes a couple of steps to the left, he can jump from this ledge and perform a jumping attack. But as we can see right here, he ends up just sliding off the ledge, not really using it to its potential. Right there he does do a jumping attack, but one thing that greatsword players should know is that you can charge your greatsword while you are jumping, and the charge animation is a lot faster in the air than it actually is on the ground, so it's always recommended that you hold the attack button when you're jumping to do as much damage as possible. And because the charge up animation while you're jumping is so much faster, it's actually why ledge jumping with the greatsword was the meta for a long time in Monster Hunter World. That's how you would achieve some of the fastest speedruns in the entire game. That was a beautiful flinch, and right there you see that the monster is reeling and is also drooling. That is what is often called in the community the clagger. Now I don't think Asmon is playing with the Master Edition, I don't think he has access to the Iceborne expansion, and so he doesn't have access to the Clutch Claw. So I'm not going to delve deep into that, but if you do have the Clutch Claw, which you do gain access to right at the start of the game, as long as you have the Iceborne expansion, whenever you see a monster in this position like this is basically the game giving you an opening to use the Clutch Claw to grab onto the monster, and the cool trick here is that you can simply latch onto the monster and let go right after, and that is going to refresh the duration of this animation, so that is going to give you a pretty big window of opportunity to dish out a lot of damage. And now let's see if he lands the TCS. He does, but he gets hit by the fireball. I'm not quite sure if we were able to roll out of that in time. Now here's a very important thing that I don't think Asmon knows about, or if he knows, he's not paying too much attention to it, or he's not very cognizant of how powerful that tool is. It may seem like he doesn't have enough time to get away from this move, or that he simply had no way to avoid this, but he actually had two very important defensive options that all players should keep in mind. So let's see this one more time. He lands the TCS, gets hit by the fireball, and right here, you notice the health, you notice that you are about to die, and you also notice that Rathian might want to do an attack, she might want to lunge at you, so one of the ideal things to do in that scenario is actually nothing. Simply do not touch the controller, do not touch the left stick, and what this will do is your hunter will actually stay longer on the ground. So whenever Rathian gets close to Asmon and does the bite attack, which ends up carting him, you are still getting up from the ground, so you still have some invincibility frames and are able to avoid death. There are a lot of attacks and a lot of powerful and agile monsters at the end of the game, where the best course of action is to actually stay on the ground after you get hit, so that the monster ends up locking into the animation of a different attack and you are still able to get back up without getting hit by that attack, and then you can just run away from it, heal yourself, whatever you need to. Now the second thing that Asmon was able to do right here, which it may not look like he has enough time to, right as he gets hit by the fireball, is if he decides to get up as quickly as he did rather than be on the ground, what you want to do is sheath the weapon and do what is called a Superman dive. Again, it may look like he doesn't have enough time there. The startup animation of the Superman dive is very quick and you have a ton of invincibility frames throughout it. In case you don't know, you can perform a Superman dive by holding the sprint button, so that is shift on mouse and keyboard, or the right trigger on the controller, and you press the dodge button at the same time, which I believe is the spacebar on the keyboard and the X button on the PlayStation controller. You can only perform this animation when running away from the monster, but what's important is the huge amount of invincibility frames that you get out of it and how fast it comes off. Throughout Asmon's gameplay, I don't think I've ever seen him do a Superman dive so far, but it's one of the most important defensive tools that you can have in Monster Hunter, so keep that in mind as you're playing throughout the game. Again, he may not have looked like he had enough time to get away from the Rathian, but the moment he sheaths the weapon, if he is fast enough, he can perform that move and get away scot-free.
Oh, dude, I really thought I was gonna. I wouldn't have committed to that. I thought that was gonna for sure stun him. Okay, let me go back.
But still, he's performing very well in this hunt so far. He's doing quite well, and I think the Rathian is just about to die.
Eat food?
Oh, and that right there, chat tells him to eat food, so he goes back to canteen. Fantastic. This is something that you should always keep in mind.
Let's see what kind of present Zora Magdaros has left
Jesus,
for us.
shut the fuck.
And also, if you do happen to cart, you should also take the time to go inside the tent, which will automatically resharpen your weapon, so you don't have to do that again. But you can also restock on all of your consumable items, so you don't run out of potions or any other essential items. Now, very important, keep in mind that if Asmon were to die right now, he could not go back to the canteen and eat again. He would be able to do so after a certain time has passed, but he would not be able to do so right away. There is a little bit of an internal cooldown, so keep that in mind as well. Not that he would want to die again, of course. And also, since we're talking about the food buffs, I noticed that whenever he carted, yeah, right there, he actually has feline insurance, which, in case you guys don't know what it does, it basically negates, for all intents and purposes, that he has carted on the quest. It's basically the game giving you a free death, and it's one of the food skills that you can get by eating at the canteen, although that one doesn't show up every day. It's something that rotates, and so you need to keep an eye on it if you want to get it. So feline insurance is one of those food skills that, whenever you are stuck on a more difficult monster, you should try to look out for, because it can actually save you. Slobbery Pants who has joined the online session. What a name. I also noticed that he named this Palico McConnell. I'm sure McConnell doesn't appreciate that, which is just funny. So right there, Asmon does use the shoulder tackle, so that means that at least he's aware of it. I'm just not sure if he knows that he can power through moves, like that one right there. So something that he did right there was he cancelled the potion drinking animation, which I think is because he probably thought that he had enough HP to live through one of Rathian's attacks. He didn't pay close attention to where Rathian was standing, and so, you know, he just got carted. It's as I said before, at this point in the game, you don't really have good gear to take on Rathian properly. You're kind of brute forcing it. And of course, it's not like Rathian is a very difficult or challenging monster, but because your gear isn't great, I see that Asmon is at the very least rocking the bone set, which in my opinion is one of the very best ones that you can get in the early portion of the game, as it gives you attack boost, slugger and health boost as well. But even with that armor set, unless you upgrade it a little bit, if you're not full HP, a lot of Rathian's attacks are simply going to kill you, and that's exactly what happened there.
He's enraged? How can I tell that he's enraged?
Right there is a good point. The reason why Rathian dealt more damage there and why Asmon probably didn't see it coming is because she was enraged. So when monsters are enraged, you get a couple of indicators. You can see it right here because Asmon is over the minimap. But whenever a monster is enraged, you see that the eye icon above that monster goes from yellow to red, telling you that the monster has become enraged. Now, the big thing about the monsters becoming enraged is that their moveset actually changes, which is, in my opinion, the scariest part, because you may get used to it after a while, but when it becomes enraged, it's a lot faster, and often it ends up having a much larger hitbox as well. And of course, they also deal more damage. However, on the other hand, you yourself deal more damage against enraged monsters, which is fantastic. Ooh, now that's a very important detail that I'm sure a lot of you guys might have missed. So right there, whenever Asmon hit the Rathian, she dropped some slinger ammo. It doesn't randomly happen, monsters only drop slinger ammunition whenever they hit certain HP thresholds. So whenever a monster reaches 30% HP, it will drop a slinger ammo, then again once it reaches 20% HP, and finally when it reaches 10% HP, at which point skulls will appear on the minimap to indicate that the monster is about to die. These thresholds are very important to know because you can capture a monster whenever it is below 30% HP, and so seeing that slinger ammo drop is a very good indicator letting you know that you can actually capture the monster right there and there. So there she goes limping, a very big sign that you can capture her and that she is about to die.
Let's see what kind of present Zora Magdaros has left for us.
Okay.
I just want to point out, that's like the 11th time she has said this throughout the quest. I didn't realize the handler would spam her voice lines like that. It's been a long time since I've replayed the game and I have a mod that also disables those NPC interactions.
Let's see what kind of present Zora Magdaros has left.
And there she says it again. Now I think he's gonna trigger the cutscene for Barroth, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen to Rathian or if she has left the locale. But I'm curious to see if Asmon can go after Rathian even though he has triggered the Barroth cutscene.
Ooh, uh-oh. Uh-oh. Who the fuck is this? I thought he was.
Okay, so it looks like Asmon's going to be fighting the Barroth instead. It's a bit of a shame that he didn't end up killing the Rathian. Probably would have gotten a lot of very good materials that he would have been able to make a pretty decent armor piece from her.
Oh, there it is.
So yeah, I think that was the first time that Asmon got a mount. As you can see right here, it's a very easy way to get a free window of opportunity to dish out some good damage. He's able to unleash a TCS. Now one thing that I'm not sure Asmon has been paying a lot of attention to is where he lands those attacks. Now he first goes for the tail, which is a very good thing you should do. It's not to overcomplicate things, but it's a part that often has a very good hit zone value. So you're going to be doing good damage against that monster by hitting the monster's tail. But here he ends up hitting the feet. And of course you even see the white damage number, which indicates that it didn't deal a lot of damage. He could have dealt a lot more by hitting the tail. And yeah, Barroth did move here, which made things more difficult. While you are charging the TCS, you can actually move your hunter a little bit by simply moving the left analog stick, or in the case of keyboard and mouse, use your WASD to move your character just a little bit, tilt him to the side so that he is able to connect that TCS and land that attack where exactly you need it to land. So as you can see right here, during that second and a half where he's charging up his TCS, he's able to slightly nudge his character a little bit to the side so that the trajectory of the TCS doesn't go this way into the feet and instead ends up going this way into the tail, thus resulting in a lot more damage and potentially a tail cut. Again, 83 is a lot of damage for this part of the game, but hitting the tail would have been something like 130, which is of course a lot higher. And right there, Asmon flinches a couple of times by hitting the monster's head. He ends up bouncing off of that part. It's one of those things where I talked about earlier, where you need to have a certain amount of sharpness to be able to hit that monster part without bouncing off of it, because it is such a hard part. That being said, if you have for example a blunt weapon, rather than a cutting weapon which is a greatsword, you would be able to hit it, like for example the hammer or the hunting horn, or even the shield bashing attacks of the sword and shield. So right there, that would have been a clagger. Again, if he had the clutch claw, you would have been able to grapple onto the monster and extend the duration of that animation to deal more damage. Of course, he doesn't have the clutch claw, so he cannot do that. But even so, that was a good opportunity to deal some damage, and instead he doesn't recognize that opportunity immediately, So what he ends up doing is rolling to the side and sheathing the weapon, instead of rolling forward and then following it up with a shoulder tackle, which would put your character right below Barroth, so you would be able to land a TCS somewhere along this part. This may seem a bit risky, and I know that Asmongold is a new player, but it's something that you can recognize and see yourself improving after knowing this, so it's good to take note of these opportunities, so that next time they happen, you do take advantage of them, because especially early on the game gives you quite a few monsters that have a lot of these opportunities, a lot of these openings that you can take advantage of. Ooh, that was a beautiful tail cut right off the sliding attack.
Oh, free tail.
Oh no.
Quick, bro. Give me a minute, give me a minute. I gotta get that. No.
Okay, at least Barroth didn't charge at him right away. Oh, he's actually going a second time for it. Yep.
Oh, did I get it?
That's a Monster Hunter classic right there. So yeah, rule of thumb, don't try to carve monster tails or any other monster parts while the monster is still in the area, because 9 times out of 10 it's not going to do well. And if you have free time in a hunt to do something, it's often a lot more beneficial to sharpen your weapon, drink a potion, maybe eat an adamant seed to increase your attack, because you still have plenty of time to go back and carve that tail. Now I am noticing that Asmon is not really using his slinger for anything, and just like that he ends up killing Barroth.
Yeah.
So right now Asmon is about to take on the Anjanath. I'm very curious to see how that is going to turn out,
The encoding Anajath.
as Anjanath is often a big wall for a lot of new players.
I'll just do this one. I think it seemed like he was up at the top right before, but the reason why I started at the bottom is so I could pick up some extra potions and stuff on the way over. Take out the trouble with the mechanics problem.
I do want to see what items he's bringing onto quest. Let's see. So he has made a loadout that has 10 potions, 10 mega potions, 10 well done steaks, and 6 antidotes. That's a pretty decent loadout, but one very important thing that a lot of players are probably not doing at the start, and I think you should start doing, is take some materials that are needed to craft these same items into the quest so you can make more of them. Like, for example, take a look at this loadout here. Let's ignore the power, charm, and the talents. Let's keep it simple like this. As you can see, I have 10 potions and 10 mega potions as well, and even 10 rations. The important thing, however, is the extra honey and the extra herbs. If you come here to the crafting list, you can see that to make a mega potion, all you need to do is combine potions with honey. So if you bring 10 honey along with 10 potions, you effectively have 20 mega potions. And you might say, oh, but I do want to have potions to use. That's why we also bring the 10 herbs, because if we come here to the crafting list, you don't even need to combine the herbs with anything, you can just use them to make potions.
Oh shit.
And it's really cool that the devs thought to add these cutscenes that teach you about the environment and different ways to interact with it. Like, as you can see right here, the hunter uses the slinger to draw Anjanath's attention, and then he uses the slinger to bring down that boulder to deal some big damage. So you know to know that whenever you go back to this area on different hunts.
Look how dumb he is.
There it is. Now, something important about Anjanath is that he is a lot bigger than many of the other monsters that Asmon has faced so far. He needs to aim those attacks a bit higher, make sure that he lands them on Anjanath's face. Now right here you can see that Asmon is very close to a ledge. Let's see if he does a jumping attack. No, he actually sheaths the weapon and goes back down. Now I'm not sure if he did that intentionally or just doesn't know how to do a jumping attack. Right here, when he's on top of the ledge, he can either sheath the weapon, and then if you sprint as you go off the ledge, you will actually jump, and so you can do a jumping attack. Or if he has his weapon unsheathed like he is here, he can simply do the dodge button into Anjanath's direction, which will cause him to jump, and so he can follow that up with a jumping attack. Unfortunately, he sheaves the weapon and just ends up falling off the ledge, and so that is a big opportunity that is wasted right there. He could have gotten a big mount, or even just a pretty decent hit. Very important to keep in mind that.
There it is. Oh,
That
I think I got him. Big dick. Oh, I hit him. I hit him.
Again, he's making sure that he stays below the monster. I think his positioning is very good, probably from his experience from playing Elden Ring and other Souls games.
I really wasted a lot of time there.
But now that Anjanath is actually getting mad, things are about to get more interesting. We're going to start seeing some breath attacks very soon.
Okay. Oh, I was stunned from hitting the thing. Sharpen? Oh, that's why it's happening. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, I got it now.
I think he's starting to understand the way that sharpness works and the way that you end up bouncing off of monster parts. So I think that's very good. Chad is telling me. I like that Chad is telling him that he can go back and carve the dead Jagras right there. He's not missing out on much by not carving him.
Let me just deal with this guy for now. Oh shit,
Again, right there, he had a couple of opportunities to do a jumping attack, and even right where he is, he can just jump right there on the left. Unfortunately, I don't think he recognizes quite yet the power of those ledges. He can also climb up these vines and do a jumping attack from there.
Big dick.
Oh, that's a bit risky. He ends up missing it, and there it is. Right there, Asmon could have very easily adjusted his positioning while doing the TCS. He doesn't move at all while he's charging it up, so I don't think he knows he can do it. And because of that, he ends up whiffing it for quite a bit. And yep, he's caught in a bad position and ends up carding.
Huh, okay. Oh, I should get food again, right?
So yeah, because he carted, he should get the food again and also go back into the tent, because that is going to resharpen his weapon and he can restock on his consumables. Now, he cannot eat at the canteen yet because not enough time has passed, but because he carted and he didn't eat at the canteen, his stamina bar and his health bar is going to be smaller than if he were to gain those food buffs. So he needs to use those rations to get that stamina back, as Chad has been telling him. So let's see if he does that, because it's actually very important. Not as important for Greatsword, because it's a weapon that doesn't use a lot of stamina, but you should still try to keep your stamina gauge as big as possible. Oh, he's gonna land that TCS. Beautiful hit right there, 150 damage to the head. You'll love to see it. Again, he's not using those tackles when he should have. Right there, that was also a perfect opportunity. And right as he jumped on that ledge, he could have done a jumping attack. I think I'm gonna stop calling those out because it's very clear that he doesn't know about those.
That's two, right? He's gonna do it.
And it seems that he also cancelled the animation for drinking the potion too early. I think he did that a few times before. You don't regain all of the health from the potion as soon as you drink it. You actually need to spend some time doing it. So that can actually cost him in the end, so he has to be careful about it. Now, one very important thing that I think a lot of players don't know, is actually doing it right here, is that you can sprint while you're drinking a potion. You aren't very fast while you're doing it, but you can move a little bit faster, so it helps for sure. And of course, because you'll be sprinting, you'll be running out of stamina. Now Asmon just did a Superman dive right there. That was something that I wish we would see more often, because again it's one of the better defensive options, and right there he got the jumping attack. Fantastic.
Come on.
He seems to understand quite well how that works.
There it is. That's what you get, man.
And he goes down. Unfortunately, Asmongold didn't get to do the finisher on the mounting attack, probably because he jumped around a little bit too much. Oh no, he ended up not going into the TCS right there. That was a good opportunity that he wasted, unfortunately.
Okay.
And there it is.
Man, I was not paying attention. Oh, it was my sharpen as well.
It definitely wasn't a problem with the sharpness. That wasn't the cause of death. The cause of death right there was him not recognizing
As well.
the distance between him and Anjanath, and also not taking advantage of that big opportunity where he could have dealt some good damage.
Okay.
And also right here, I haven't really spoken about this so far in the video, but you can actually block with the greatsword. It's not particularly amazing because a lot of times, rather than blocking, you want to use your shoulder tackle to power through an attack, because you'll be closer to the monster and in a better position so that you can land your TCS. However, in this position right here, like for example, if you were to shoulder tackle right here, it would be a perfect opportunity because he would have enough time from Anjanath doing this to go into a TCS and do some good damage, and he would also be in a much better position somewhere around here to avoid this attack. Now, since he is here and he sees that Anjanath is about to charge into him, he can quite simply just guard with the greatsword by holding down the R2 button, and he would have been able to avoid this death.
Man, I was not paying attention. Oh, it was my sharpen.
So yeah,
as
it
well.
really wasn't a problem with sharpness,
That's why I kept getting hit.
but I guess I should also take the opportunity to mention that blocking with the greatsword is going to greatly eat into your sharpness meter, but again, it's something that you don't want to do often. But keep that in mind that it is an option that you can use,
Okay.
especially in situations like that. So he only has one more card left. Let's see how he does so far. He's been landing some pretty good hits, so I think there's a pretty good chance that he can still do it. He just needs to be careful about his position a little bit more, and try to use his defensive options a lot more often. But in terms of damage, he's been doing great.
Fuck.
I say this just as he misses quite a few hits. Oof, just below the tail.
Nice. Got it.
218 damage, perfect. Again, he's doing a lot more damage because the monster is enraged, but in turn, Anjanath also does a lot more damage. Oh, he actually failed the quest, damn.
Jesus.
That is unfortunate.
Jesus.
Failed the quest.
But yeah, keep in mind that Anjanath is a lot of people's first wall in this game.
Let's try. Yeah.
And having seen one of my friends that has just gotten into Monster Hunter for the first time,
Show how much health I got him to.
he was having a lot of trouble with it.
Was it all?
So I think he was still doing quite well. I don't think he was doing bad at all.
I think that this time around, I'm just gonna have to play much more carefully, because like, I've never had to fight a guy like this. Because like it punishes you so hard if you trade with the boss.
Yeah, that is the thing about Anjanath. Because he is such a large monster with big hitboxes, he can very easily punish you for your mistakes. And that's exactly what happened there. So let's see him tackle Anjanath one more time.
It's gonna be a while to get over there, huh?
Let's see, is he gonna fight him here?
I'd prefer to not have to fight him here.
Yeah, it's not a very good idea. And he goes for it. Let's see how he does. Again, he's doing the smart thing of being below Anjanath as much as possible. He got some free damage in, so that's quite a good start. The cool thing about this area is that there are a lot of ledges that you can use to jump off to the monster, and there's also some flashbugs you can use. So let's see if he uses that to his advantage. I think there's also a Paratoad on this area that he can use. And he gets a jumping attack, perfect. Off to a great start. Oof, he didn't... I guess he doesn't understand the mounting system too well just yet. Now, if he had enough stamina after being thrown off, he would actually be able to jump back in. But because his stamina ran out, he's simply going to fall off the monster and he basically just wasted the mount. Beautiful flinch. He goes into the charge tackle, so let's see how he follows that up. Can he land the TCS? He can, but sadly it lands on the feet rather than the tail. It would have been hard to land on the tail because it's rather high up, but again, he can aim the TCS and that's something that he's not been doing, so he's been missing out on some damage because of that. But at least he's been consistent with the dodges, staying below Anjanath as much as possible. He's been doing very well so far. He's not getting hit by a lot of things. He managed to find a good enough opening to sharpen his weapon. It's a shame that he's been missing some of his TCSs, and whenever he lands them, he doesn't deal the most damage. Right there he does a Superman dive, but because he doesn't have the target camera, he is not able to keep track of where Anjanath is positioning, so that could have turned out very badly. Thankfully it didn't.
I rolled that perfectly. There's no reason not to.
Again, that is a very good thing for him to be doing. Whenever the monster moves away, you always sharpen. So in this area there are some hazards that he can use to his advantage. There's a couple of poison cups that he can use to poison Anjanath, which will do some good damage over time.
I tried to get on top of him.
So right here, this thing, it gives you some thorn pods if you get these to fall down. So you basically just aim at it with your slinger and you shoot it and they will drop. And if the Anjanath is below it, it will take some damage and flinch and possibly even KO from it. So if he sees a good opportunity, he can make good use of it. And that can lead to a good TCS, dealing a lot of damage. Let's see if Asmongold recognizes that and takes advantage of it. You can also do a sliding attack on that slope. I think Asmongold's playstyle so far has been pretty basic, pretty standard. Likely simply because he doesn't understand the systems quite well. But as he plays, it's certainly something that he will improve upon. So that was a beautiful flinch. He does the shoulder tackle. He's gonna try to go into the TCS, but I think he was too slow. Let's see. He's still able to land that big powerful hit and gets a part break as well, and Anjanath is poisoned from the poison cup. So that was a very good turn of events. I don't think Asmon saw that the plant was broken and that he got poisoned as well. But what's important is that he brought the antidote, so he's able to heal the poison, and he runs back into it again. But you see why I think that poison is such a powerful ailment this early into the game. He's constantly taking 8 damage over time, and whenever your hits don't deal a lot of damage, most weapons would be dealing something like 10 to 30 damage. Having the monster constantly losing 8 health per second is a very nice added bonus in terms of damage.
I thought he was gonna do the roar.
It seems he forgot to sharpen before he went to this area,
That was stupid of me.
but he might still be fine.
That's too bad.
This area is a little bit claustrophobic, but keep in mind that he can use the slinger to drop the big boulder on top of Anjanath, dealing a big amount of damage and also giving him time to land a true charge slash.
I need to stop double attacking.
But again, because
I'm gonna try and hold for the triple.
oh, that's perfect,
I got him. I don't think I've
and he got it.
Yeah, I really don't understand iframes in this game.
And Anjanath is all fired up. This is where things get a little bit more interesting. Ooh, we barely dodged that one. I think he's becoming good at noticing the attack patterns and reading them. Again, it's likely a skill that he developed by playing all those Souls games. But when it comes to actually knowing and understanding his weapon, there's still a lot that he needs to improve on, which is understandable. He's only been playing this for like a couple of days or so. Ooh, that's a very big KO. And he goes for the face, perfect. Now let's see if he actually lands the TCS. Just like you can power through with your shoulder tackle, power through any attack, you can still do the same with roars.
Okay.
So if you anticipate that Anjanath is going to roar there, you could have shoulder tackled and still landed that TCS. I know I keep harping on him not using the shoulder tackle, but it's a very important tool as part of the Greatsword's arsenal, and if you're not using it, you're missing out on a lot of potential damage. So for any Greatsword users out there, do not hesitate to use your shoulders. So right here, this is very risky. Asmongold gets himself into that corner. He might be able to land this TCS. He just misses and he gets punished for it, and that results into a card. That is a very basic mistake. Right there, he either...
To do that, but I did it. I was being such a greedy.
It's not just being greedy, because I don't think being greedy was the big mistake here. I think that the mistake was putting himself into that corner when he was fine just being near the center of the arena. But by putting himself in the corner, he kind of makes it easy for Anjanath to just throw himself into that corner, and all of his attacks are pretty much going to land because Asmon doesn't have anywhere else to go to dodge. It's not like the Souls games where you can dodge through attacks by just iframing them. The dodge here has very few iframes, so you can't theoretically use the dodge to iframe through the attacks, but it is a lot less consistent. It's not something that you're going to land a lot of times, and a lot of very good players don't even try to do it. They more so use the dodge to position themselves away from attacks. So one other option that Asmon had in this situation was to climb up the ledge that is behind him and go for a jumping attack, which would be a lot faster, would deal decent damage, and then he would be able to reposition himself and try to land a TCS after or do something else entirely. But because he put himself into that position, it was just a lot harder to get away from those attacks, and it resulted in a card. So it's not just being greedy. I don't think it was the big problem. I think it was a decent opportunity to deal damage, and he recognized that. He just didn't notice that he was putting himself in a bad position.
Almost dead. It literally killed me in one attack, man. Like, that's the ability I'm afraid of, because I don't... Like, I'm afraid of it because I don't understand it.
Just to correct a little bit, it wasn't a single attack, he didn't get one shot, it was 2 attacks. It's just that because he couldn't really get away from the second attack, it just made it feel like it was all one big attack. But if somehow he got into a position where getting hit by the first attack meant that he didn't necessarily get hit by the second, then he would be fine. And again, as I've told you guys earlier, there's also the option of just staying dead on the floor after getting hit by the first attack. So like, he gets hit here, he doesn't press anything, so the character doesn't get up, and so the follow-up misses. So after Anjanath does that attack, Asmon is getting back up, even has McConnell, his Palico here, getting ready to heal him, so he doesn't even have to take out a potion to heal himself. He would be in a good situation, he could go back to dealing damage, or he could maybe reposition himself to be in a better spot to fight against the Anjanath. So it's these micro decisions that end up leading to a card, and I think that these situations can be easily avoided. Now, I don't think Anjanath is far from being dead here. I would say that he's about 30% or close to it. I haven't seen the slinger ammo drop yet, but it shouldn't be too far from it. Oh, there's the slinger ammo right there. Okay, so he's already below 30%. Again, that is important to keep in mind in case you want to capture the monsters, or if the actual objective of the quest is to capture them. You need to make sure that you know whenever the monster is about to die, so you don't make the mistake of actually killing them when the quest requires you to capture them. And right there we get a beautiful tail cut. He had the chance to go for a TCS there. He keeps sheathing his weapon whenever he has good shots. And right there he also charged one of his earlier combos, which is something that you don't want to do. And that was a bad TCS because it ended up landing on the arms. So things can get a bit tricky here, because this is where Rathalos often shows up. You can even see the Rathalos scales right there. So we're more likely than not going to see a turf war here. And let's see what happens. Again, he keeps sheathing the weapon there. If he just shoulder tackles and then he can go into a TCS, he had the opportunity to deal a lot of damage there.
Man, I'm really having trouble with these.
Oof, he almost got hit by that second one. He could have died there. He's so close, it's almost done.
Okay, here we go.
And Anjanath is asleep, so there's the opportunity where... Let's see if he does it. So the thing about a monster being asleep, in case you don't know, is that the first hit whenever the monster is asleep is going to deal double damage. This is perfect for the greatsword because you deal so much damage in a single hit. So what you can do is get some distance between you and the monster, and you make sure that the final hit is the one that wakes up Anjanath. It takes some practice to get the positioning right, but if you were able to land that attack to wake up Anjanath, it would deal a crazy damage number, something like 300 damage, which at this point in the game is nuts, and maybe would have outright killed him. So if you play Greatsword, that is a skill that you must master. Being able to do a proper wake up, that is going to be that is going to make a huge difference. And also a little bit of a tip, make sure that you give your Palico a sleep weapon, so that he can force the monster to go to sleep, to give you another opportunity to use your TCS whenever the monster is asleep.
Okay, I should have. Can I move? Can I move?
He got himself into a corner and Anjanath is about to die, but yeah. In those situations, you kinda just want to Superman dive as much as possible, just hope that the monster goes away, gives you some space, and you run out of there.
Okay.
I don't think he has been doing that intentionally, I think we've only seen him do it once so far. And again, it's one of your better defensive options.
You gotta do a dive? Yeah, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly, he's gotta do the Superman dive. That is definitely the best thing to do there. And just like that, he was one hit away from dying. I love when that happens, you gotta love it. But there you have it, I think Asmongold has been doing great so far in Monster Hunter World. There are definitely things that he is lacking in terms of knowledge, things that he seems to not understand quite well. But I think he's only played for 2 days so far, and I'm very interested in seeing him improve, seeing his progress. and very curious to see how he fares in high rank once he goes up against the Elder Dragons and Devil Joe. Very interested in seeing all of that. I typically don't do reaction content, but let me know how you guys feel about this. It's something very different compared to my usual content. Don't worry, I will keep on producing my usual guides, but I think that given that Asmongold has reacted to one of my videos, and given that he is such a big streamer, that has certainly helped with the whole return to world movement and more people getting into the game, I think this would make for a good video that can even be helpful for new players. So if you want to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to let me know in the comment section. With that being said, my name is Dark Hero, thank you very much for watching, and as always, happy hunting!